I've served in the US Navy for over 10 years, and in that time, I've seen things that can't be explained. But nothing haunts me quite like the Vanishing Man on the USS Roosevelt. In 2013, we were deployed in the Pacific Ocean, conducting routine exercises. I was assigned night watch near the hangar deck, ensuring everything was in order. It was around 200 hours. The ship was eerily quiet, and most of the crew were asleep. That's when I saw him. A man was walking slowly down the passageway, moving toward the restricted area near the maintenance section. Something about him wasn't right. His uniform looked outdated, more like something from World War II or the Korean War rather than modern naval attire. At first, I thought maybe an officer was playing a prank, but as I looked closer, I noticed his face was emotionless, almost vacant. His movements were strange, as if he was floating just slightly above the deck. I called out, "Hey, you're not supposed to be here." He didn't stop. He didn't even acknowledge me. I quickly followed him as he turned the corner. But when I reached the same spot, he was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone. No doors, no exits, just a solid steel bulkhead. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding. A cold chill ran through my spine. When I reported the incident, I expected to be laughed at. Instead, a senior officer just smirked and said, "You've met him, huh?" He then told me that for decades, sailors on the USS Roosevelt had reported seeing the same ghostly figure. Some claimed he was the spirit of a sailor who had fallen overboard during training years ago. His body never recovered. Others said he was a lost soul, wandering the ship forever, never realizing he had died. I saw him twice more before my deployment ended. Each time, he did the same thing, walking toward the bulkhead and then disappearing into thin air. Even now, years later, I still get chills thinking about it. Because no matter how much I try to rationalize it, I know what I saw. And I wasn't the only one. I served aboard a Los Angeles-class submarine, one of the most advanced in the Navy. When you're underwater for weeks at a time, you get used to the silence. No sunlight, no wind. Just the hum of the reactor and the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides. You adapt. But sometimes the silence isn't empty. Sometimes it hides something worse. One night, while on patrol in the North Atlantic, I was in the control room with a few other sailors. It was around 0300 hours, and we were cruising at a depth of nearly 600 feet. Suddenly, our sonar operator picked up a strange tapping sound. At first, we thought it was just the usual ocean noise. Pressure shifts, marine life, debris hitting the hull. But then we realized something was off. The taps were rhythmic, deliberate. TAP, 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 TAP. That's Morse code, the sonar officer muttered. I leaned closer. My stomach dropped when I recognized the message. It spelled HELP. Everyone went silent. There was nothing around us for miles. No ships, no wreckage, and certainly no one who could be tapping on our hull. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, the tapping moved. It was no longer coming from the outside. It was inside the subway. I swear on my life. I heard the distinct sound of knocking, coming from the bulkhead just a few feet away. It was slow and deliberate, as if someone was trapped behind the walls, begging to get out. I turned to my commanding officer. His face was pale. The next day, after surfacing, we did some research. That's when we found out, decades earlier, a submarine of the same class had been lost in that exact location. No survivors were ever found. Some say the ocean is full of lost souls, sailors who never made it home. Maybe that night they were trying to reach out to us. I don't know what we heard down there, but I do know one thing. When you're hundreds of feet underwater, there should be nothing knocking from the outside or the inside. In 1998, I was stationed at a remote island base in the Pacific for naval training exercises. The island had been used by the military for decades, but for some reason, it was mostly abandoned except for a few facilities. There was an unnatural stillness to the place. No birds, no insects, just the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. Some of the older guys said it was haunted. I didn't believe in that kind of thing until I saw it for myself. One night, while on patrol near the old supply depot, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, booted steps, like a group of soldiers marching. I turned around. No one was there. Then I heard whispers. Low voices speaking a language I couldn't understand. My flashlight flickered. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw them. A line of figures standing in the moonlight, their faces shadowed, their uniforms old and tattered. They weren't moving. They weren't blinking. And then, they were gone. I ran back to the barracks, shaking. The next morning, I told my CO. He just nodded and said, "You saw them too, huh?" I later learned that during World War II, the island had been used as a prison camp, and many soldiers had died there under horrific conditions. Their spirits, it seemed, had never left. I never went near that depot again, and when our deployment ended, I left that cursed island behind, hoping never to set foot there again. The U.S. Navy has more than its fair share of ghost stories, from haunted aircraft carriers to phantom knocks on submarines. Whether these stories are true or legend, one thing is certain: the sea keeps its secrets well. Have you or someone you know ever had a terrifying experience while in the Navy or out at sea? We'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. If you love real horror stories, don't forget to like this video if you love creepy tales. Share with your fellow horror fans. And subscribe and turn on notifications for more spine-chilling stories. Because out on the ocean, you're never truly alone.